Think about the best leader you've ever worked with. What made that person unforgettable? Was it exceptional technical expertise? Outstanding strategic thinking? A remarkable vision? Now, those qualities certainly matter, but if you're like most people, your first memory probably isn't about a project or a business decision. You remember how that leader made you feel, and perhaps they believed in you before you believed in yourself. Perhaps they listened when no one else seemed to have the time. And perhaps they challenged you to grow while giving you the confidence to succeed. Great leaders are remembered because they build meaningful relationships. And that observation may sound simple, yet it carries enormous significance in today's workplace. Organizations invest millions in technology, systems, and innovation. And those investments are important, but sustainable success ultimately depends upon something far more human: the quality of relationships. High-performing teams are not simply groups of talented individuals. They are communities built on trust. Welcome to Coaching Talks, folks, where we explore practical leadership strategies that help people and organizations perform at their best. Hi, I'm Richard Fontenay, and throughout my years in public service, consulting, executive coaching, and leadership development, I've observed one consistent pattern. Organizations succeed when relationships are healthy, and they struggle when relationships break down. Today's conversation builds on this week's Fontenay Magazine eLearning Leadership Companion, Relationship Capital, and why it's the currency of the future, and follows our discussion on the listening heart, where we explored Jesus' command to love one another. And today, we'll examine how those principles become practical habits that strengthen performance in business, work, and everyday life. Because performance leadership is not only about achieving results, it's about achieving results with people, through people, and for people. So, why do relationships drive performance anyway? Well, many organizations measure performance through numbers, such as sales, productivity, profitability, customer satisfaction, project completion. Now, these metrics are important. However, behind every performance indicator stands a human relationship. Projects succeed because teams collaborate, and customers return because they trust people. Innovation grows because individuals feel safe sharing ideas, and employees remain committed because they believe their leaders genuinely care about them. In other words, performance is often the visible outcome of invisible relationships. When trust declines, performance usually follows. When communications weakens, misunderstandings multiply. When appreciation disappears, motivation quietly fades. Healthy relationships create healthy performance. And this is why exceptional leaders spend as much time building trust as they do building strategy. Recently, I have been looking at the trust equation, what it means, and how to action it. Trust rarely appears overnight. It grows through consistent behavior over time. Now, I've often described trust as a bridge. Every honest conversation adds another plank. Every promise kept strengthens its foundation. and every respectful interaction reinforces its structure. Eventually, people feel confident crossing that bridge together. Unfortunately, trust can also erode, such as broken commitments, poor communication, hidden agendas, disrespectful behavior. One careless decision may damage a relationship that required years to build. The encouraging news is that trust can also be restored. It begins with humility, ownership, transparency, consistency. And people do not expect perfection, though. They do expect authenticity. Leaders who acknowledge mistakes often strengthen credibility rather than diminish it. Now, there are 3 conversations every leader must master. Throughout my coaching work, I've found that meaningful relationships often grow through 3 types of conversations. First, there are conversations that build understanding. Before solving problems, we need to understand people. We need to ask thoughtful questions, listen without interruption, and seek clarification before offering solutions. When people feel understood, they become more willing to collaborate, and understanding then builds trust, and trust builds performance. Second, we have conversations that build growth. Every leader has opportunities to coach rather than simply correct. Instead of focusing exclusively on mistakes, ask, what did you learn? How would you approach this differently next time? How can I help you succeed? Growth-oriented conversations develop confidence rather than fear, and people become more willing to get involved in initiative when they are valued. Thirdly, we have conversations that build encouragement. Encouragement is one of the leadership's most underused tools. Many leaders assume people already know that they are appreciated, and rarely that is true. Specific encouragement inspires continued excellence. So instead of saying, good work, say, your preparation made today's meeting significantly more productive. And thank you for investing the extra effort. Specific recognition demonstrates genuine attention, and people remember leaders who notice them. Now, research has shown that performance begins with belonging. Researchers continue to discover something leaders have observed for generations. People perform better when they feel they belong. Belonging creates psychological safety. People contribute ideas more freely. They admit mistakes more quickly. They ask questions without fear. They collaborate rather than compete internally. Healthy organizations cultivate environments where individuals know that their voices matter. Belonging does not eliminate accountability, though. Instead, it creates conditions where accountability is received as an opportunity for growth rather than a threat. When people know they are respected, they become more receptive to coaching. Now, here's a story about 2 managers or 2 manager leaders. Several years ago, I worked with 2 managers leading similar teams. Both possessed comparable technical expertise. Both managed similar workloads. Yet, their results were really different. The first manager focused almost exclusively on tasks. Meetings centered around deadlines, and performance reviews concentrated primarily on problems, and employees completed their assignments, but rarely demonstrated any kind of enthusiasm. Turnover gradually increased. Now, the second manager also valued results. However, she began meetings by asking about people. She celebrated successes. She encouraged collaboration. And she invested time coaching. When problems emerged, she addressed them honestly while preserving dignity. And over time, her team consistently outperformed expectations. Not because they worked harder, but because they worked together. Now, the difference wasn't talent. It really was relationship. The experience reinforced an important leadership truth. People give their hands to organizations. They give their hearts to leaders they trust. Now, as you reflect on your own leadership this week, consider these 3 questions. Who in my team needs more encouragement? Which relationship would benefit from a meaningful conversation? And how can I strengthen trust through one consistent action this week? Notice that none of these questions requires a larger budget or a new organizational structure. They simply require intentional leadership. Meaningful relationships are built one conversation at a time. Now, after our coffee break, which will be very shortly, we'll explore practical habits that deepen trust over time. Examine how leaders navigate conflict without damaging relationships, and discover why coaching is ultimately an investment in people rather than simply an investment in performance. And we'll conclude with this week's learning lens and one practical leadership challenge you can begin immediately. Now, here's one idea worth sharing today. High-performing teams are not built on talent alone. They are built on relationships strong enough to bring out the best in one another. And now it's time for our coffee break. Welcome. If you're listening during your workday, this is a good time to pause for just a moment. Take a sip of your coffee or tea and reflect on this question. Who helped you become the person you are today? Now, as I look back over my own career, I don't first think about the projects I completed or the positions I held. I think about the people who invested in me, and believe me, there were many. Some challenged me to think differently. Some encouraged me when I doubted myself, and others quietly modeled integrity, humility, and service without ever realizing the impact that they were having. Now, those relationships shaped not only my career, but also my character. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson leadership teaches us. We may complete projects, we may accomplish goals, but our deepest influence is almost always found in the people we help grow. Now, as you finish your coffee, think of one person who has invested in you. Then ask yourself, how can I become that kind of leader for someone else? And now it's time to continue. First, let's talk about navigating conflict without damaging relationships. No meaningful relationship exists without occasional disagreement. Conflict itself is not the problem. How we handle it is. Many leaders avoid conversations because they fear creating tension, and others confront issues so aggressively that trust is damaged in the process. Performance leadership requires a better approach. Healthy leaders address problems early, honestly, and respectfully. They focus on the issues rather than on attacking the individual. They listen before drawing conclusions. And they seek solutions instead of assigning blame. Now, one helpful question during difficult conversations is, help me understand your perspective. And that simple invitation often changes the tone of an entire discussion. People become less defensive when they know that they are being heard. Resolving conflict is not about winning an argument. It's about strengthening the relationship while solving the problem. Now, throughout my career, I found that coaching is an investment in people. Many organizations think of coaching as correcting poor performance. Effective leaders understand coaching quite differently. Coaching is helping people discover their potential. Rather than giving every answer, coaches ask thoughtful questions. Rather than creating dependence, they develop confidence. And rather than controlling people, they equip people. Consider the difference between telling and coaching. A manager says, "Here's what you need to do." But a coach asks, "What options have you considered?" A manager focuses on today's task. A coach prepares someone for tomorrow's opportunity. And the goal of coaching is not simply improved performance. It is developing people who can think, lead, and grow with increasing confidence. That is one of the greatest investments a leader can make. Now, here's a question for you. Do you know what leadership habits strengthen relationships? Meaningful relationships are not built through occasional acts of leadership. They are strengthened through consistent habits. Here are 5 habits worth practicing every day. Be fully present. When someone's speaking to you, give them your full attention. Put away distractions, maintain eye contact, listen without planning your next response. Presence communicates respect. Then ensure that you are communicating clearly. Many workplace frustrations arise from unclear expectations. Explain the goal, clarify responsibilities, confirm understanding. Clarity reduces confusion and strengthens trust. Recognize progress. People need encouragement while they are growing, not only after they have succeeded. Celebrate small improvements. Notice effort. Affirm learning. Progress fuels motivation. And lead with integrity. Integrity means doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Consistency between words and actions creates credibility. Trust grows when leaders are dependable. Invest in others. Every conversation is an opportunity to develop someone. So, offer encouragement, share knowledge, provide constructive feedback, open doors for others. Leadership becomes fully meaningful when it multiplies itself through people. And remember, your relationships go way beyond the workplace. Performance leadership does not end when we leave the office. The same principles that strengthen teams also strengthen families and friendships, volunteer organizations, and communities. Listening strengthens marriages. Encouragement strengthens children. And respect strengthens friendships. And finally, patience strengthens communities. The habits we practice at work often become the habits we carry home. And that is why integrating business, work, and life remains one of the central philosophies of our Fontenay magazine, eLearning. Leadership is not something we switch on during office hours. It becomes part of who we are. And the strongest leaders live consistently across every area of life. Now, throughout my years in leadership development, I've discovered something both simple and profound. The people are rarely transformed by impressive presentations alone. They are transformed by relationships built on trust. When someone believes in us, we begin believing in ourselves. When someone listens with genuine interest, we become more willing to share ideas. And when someone coaches rather than criticizes, confidence grows. Now, looking back, I realize that many of my own opportunities came because someone chose to invest in me. And that reminds me that leadership is never merely about achieving success. It's about creating opportunities for others to succeed. Now, if those we lead become wiser, stronger, and more confident because of our influence, then our leadership has accomplished something that lasts. And now for the learning lens. As you move through the coming week, carry this leadership question with you. What one relationship can I strengthen through intentional engagement and encouragement, honest conversation, or consistent trust? Notice the focus. Not 10 relationships, not someday, but today. And not many, but just one. Leadership grows through investments. Meaningful relationships are built one conversation, one promise kept, one encouragement, and one moment of genuine care at a time. When relationships become stronger, teams become stronger. Organizations become healthier, families become closer, and communities become more resilient. And that is the quiet power of performance leadership. Now, thank you for joining me on Coaching Talks, folks. This week, we've explored how meaningful relationships become the foundation of high-performing teams, healthy organizations, and fulfilling personal lives. Our conversations has reinforced the central message of this week's Fontenay magazine eLearning Leadership Companion, Relationship Capital, and why it's the currency of the future. We've also built on the spiritual foundation established in the listening heart, where we reflected on Jesus' command to love one another. Together, these three resources remind us that leadership is not measured simply by what we accomplish. It is measured by the people we help flourish. Now, as you go into the week ahead, look for opportunities to strengthen trust, encourage growth, and deepen one relationship at a time. Now, those small investments often produce the greatest long-term returns. Now, thank you for spending the time with me. Until next week, keep learning, keep growing, and keep investing in people, because the strongest organizations are built by leaders who understand that relationships always come before results. Now, next week on Coaching Talks, we'll begin a new conversation centered on compassion and empathy. Our next episode is entitled Practicing Compassion and Empathy for Fostering Stronger Human Connections. And we'll explore how emotionally intelligent leaders create workplaces where people feel understood, respected, and empowered to contribute their very best. You'll discover practical coaching techniques for responding with empathy while maintaining accountability and resolving conflict with compassion and building teams that thrive because people know that they matter. I hope you'll join me for another practical leadership conversation. Now, I'm Richard Fontenay, signing off for now. See you next week for coaching talks, if not before. Bye now.